Tonight on Boston 25 News.
Coming home, getting out of the military, separating from that, very difficult for a lot of people.
The men and women who serve our country.
I call it the war after the war.
Facing new battles on American soil.
I never thought I was ever going to make it home, so then I never thought that I was ever going to have to readjust to the civilian world.
The programs offering help on the home front.
You find something in yourself that you thought you lost.
And a fresh start for these American heroes coming home. Good evening, everyone. I'm Mark Ockerblom.
And I'm Vanessa Welch. Thanks for joining us for this Boston 25 News in-depth special, Coming Home. It's part of our continuing series that focuses on issues facing our soldiers returning from war.
As we head into this Veterans Day weekend, we begin tonight with a new program that focuses on the family. I spoke to a soldier that said the program saved his life, and he couldn't have done it without the support of his wife.
And I went through the program and things were all right.
Just talking to Kurt Power, you never know he had trouble adjusting after returning from war.
I'd wake up in the middle of the night and, be yelling or in cold sweats and have nightmares. And my wife would always say, are you okay? What's going on? And I'd say, yeah, I don't want to talk about it.
A sergeant in the Army, Power received the Purple Heart after nearly being killed by a sniper back in 2005. A bullet through the chest ended his war in Iraq, but the battle at home was just beginning.
Coming home was horrifying. I never thought I was ever going to make it home, so then I never thought that I was ever going to have to readjust to the civilian world.
5 years ago, Power was approached by a new program called Home Base. It offers free services for veterans to help them deal with the stresses of civilian life.
I was scared to talk about the things that none of us ever want to talk about. So I said to my wife, Jessica, who was amazing, I said, Jessica, do you mind coming with me? And she said, of course I will.
Dr. Cherie Cohen is a staff psychologist and director of couples services at Home Base.
It's life-changing for families and couples when they get on the same page.
She says family members of veterans are usually the first ones to reach out for help.
It doesn't require a level of PTSD for military couples and families to benefit from our services.
3, 2, 1.
Home Base recently opened its new Center for Excellence located in the Charlestown Navy Yard. The state-of-the-art facility is completely paid for by private funding and offers a variety of programs for veterans.
We do yoga, we do Tai Chi in here.
Chief Operating Officer Michael Allard allowed us to tag along while he gave Massachusetts Senator Ed Markey a tour of the facility. These masks are made by veterans who participated in an art therapy program. The outside represents how they think the world views them. The inside of the mask is how they see themselves.
When the family members come in, one of the things that they have to do is present their mask to the family member.
I'm the last guy that would ever do this or wants to talk about his feelings or, meditates now or does yoga. I said, but it works. It works, and I think it's important, and I think it's all part of evolving post-war.
An evolution that was possible with the help of his wife.
Thanks to the Home Base program, that not only, once again, do I feel better every day of my life, our marriage is a million times better, and I already thought it was perfect.
Well, every program through Home Base is free for veterans. If you want more information about how to take advantage of these programs, we have a link available in the Coming Home section on boston25news.com. Vanessa?
Mark, some soldiers traded the battlefield for a college campus. They enrolled in the Warrior Scholar Project at Harvard and MIT this summer. Boston 25 News anchor Gene Levanchi takes a look at the program that teaches them how to be students as a way to transition back to civilian life.
The draft that your partner has written.
It's back to class for Buddy Ray Summit.
It's almost been so long that really and truly, I've forgotten what school is like.
Buddy's starting to remember as the 29-year-old Marine Sergeant attends a different kind of boot camp at Harvard and MIT this summer.
I never really dreamed, one, that I would even be on this campus in some sort of educational capacity. I would like to go into medicine. I'd like to be a surgeon.
Big dreams are what the Warrior Scholar Project is all about. It's a program that brings soldiers who are either retired or soon will be onto elite college campuses for a 2-week immersion into an academic setting.
We want to take our enlisted veterans, many of them who are first-generation college students, and expose them to what life could be like for them at a top-tier school.
Sidney Ellington, a former Navy SEAL, is the executive director. He says moving from a war zone to a classroom is a big transition.
We have a program that we call degreening. And that's where we talk about taking the uniform off, washing the camo paint off, and transitioning from a very unique culture to what life is like on a college campus.
The program started in 2012 with 9 participants. This year, 245 veterans will attend 17 elite campuses across the country.
We set the bar as high as we can and expose them to that environment.
Tell me about this title.
That appealed to Sarah Butler. The Air Force cadet has to retire early after being diagnosed with diabetes.
I think that's what we're all doing here, is that we're looking for ways to develop ourselves.
It all starts with learning how to learn, a willingness to go outside a comfort zone. But Ellington says soldiers who take the first step on that journey can reap big rewards.
While there is such thing as post-traumatic stress, there is such a thing as post-traumatic growth. And we believe that our program allows individuals to kind of refocus, reset, recenter, set their sights high, and then start to achieve. That can do wonders for overcoming post-traumatic stress or overcoming a negative experience that they may have had in a previous tour of duty.
The program is free for the soldiers, but it costs the Warrior Scholar Project about $6,000 to sponsor each attendee.
It's an inspiring story of overcoming addiction and the odds. I sat down with a retired Green Beret shot during an ambush in Afghanistan. He continues to serve others, speaking to veterans groups who struggle coming home. A warning, some of the battlefield video in this story is hard to watch.
I could never fully appreciate how much I needed the support of others until I was 27 years old and a single bullet taught me that lesson.
That's Green Beret Staff Sergeant Kevin Flake on the ground. The video is from the helmet cam of another soldier back in 2011.
All of a sudden, it felt like I'd got hit in the stomach with a sledgehammer.
His teammates frantically try to stop the bleeding as the Taliban ambush ensues.
Everybody work together and stay calm.
Flake is loaded onto a helicopter as he's rushed to a field hospital nearby. Floating in and out of consciousness, he remembers speaking to the surgeon.
My first question was, am I going to live or not? And he says, I'm not sure. It looks pretty bad. You hang in there. Do you have any last requests?
What is it like to hear someone say it doesn't look good?
When I was in that moment where I had a gunshot wound to the stomach and I thought I was going to die, it was actually a lot more peaceful than I thought that it would be.
The next thing Kevin remembers is waking up in a German hospital. This video was taken in San Antonio, Texas, 1 week after he was shot. They had to remove 20% of his colon. The bullet shattered his hip, damaging his femoral nerve, leaving his left leg paralyzed. An experimental surgery helped him walk again. But during his recovery, Flake became addicted to painkillers. Fighting through recovery and battling addiction, his wife convinced this father of 2 young girls to medically retire and take care of himself.
I had to come to grips and understand, especially with my injuries, I was never going to be able to go back to that lifestyle. And so I had to make this decision, are you going to think about the past or are you going to move forward towards the future?
Kevin recovered and did so much more. He pursued not 1, but 2 concurrent master's degrees from MIT and Harvard. He graduated in the spring of 2016.
It was the big reason why I was able to get off my pain meds finally.
But you carve out a significant amount of your time to help veterans.
I try to give back to the community as much as I possibly can, because I wouldn't be where I am right now if it wasn't for the support and help of so many people out there.
Every couple months, the former Green Beret makes his way here to the housing unit for military veterans at the Middlesex Jail to share his journey.
Coming home, getting out of the military, separating from that, very difficult for a lot of people.
Sheriff Peter Katusian created the program to help incarcerated veterans find a path to success.
For these men to see someone that was in very much the same place as them have been able to be successful in overcoming those odds in a way that they can see themselves overcoming the same obstacles they're facing today.
Take that mission, take that purpose, that pride that you had every day you put on the uniform, and understand that that's your new purpose, to go out and just be the best at whatever you're choosing to do.
It shows me that he wants to give back.
It's that giving back that Kevin Flake thinks more people can do.
The more that people become involved, show that they care for those individuals that took so much time to sacrifice in the military, I think that will do a number to help them.
Kevin also has a documentary coming out called Wounded by War, and it premieres this upcoming Tuesday at the Fairmont Copley Plaza at 7 p.m. And all proceeds benefit the Green Beret Foundation. So far, they've raised more than $26,000.
Sailing can be a great way to relax and connect with nature, but for some veterans, getting out in the open water is much more than a recreational activity. It's actually part of their therapy. A picture-perfect day on Boston Harbor is something Bill Black doesn't take for granted.
Nice and quiet. You shoot the breeze with a few friends, and everybody can hear you.
This Navy veteran is part of a program that gets vets of all capabilities out on the water.
My disability is my back is completely gone, and some PTSD.
There are some things that may seem really simple, but actually have a really significant therapeutic effect.
Alex DeFronto is the executive director of Pierce Point Sailing in East Boston.
For veterans who have been through really stressful experiences, this is a really unique platform for them to feel empowered because they get to take control of the boat, and also to be able to get that effect that the water has on the human mind.
Over 7 weeks, the veterans learn the art of sailing with the goal of getting certified to go solo at some point. It might not seem like such a big accomplishment, but recreational therapist Joe Grimard says it can have a huge impact.
Getting them to come out and do this in a safe way to build their confidence and realize it's fun. Again, I remind people it's not going to fix your problem, but it's going to allow you to deal with your problems in a much easier way because it removes the stress from everyday life.
Beats the hell out of the couch. Absolutely.
Jim Murray of Lynn was in the Air Force for 20 years and suffered a loss of hearing being around loud jets.
You sail, which in turn is a soothing feeling. And you talk to your fellow veterans and you basically exchange stories so you enjoy the camaraderie.
I can't say enough how hugely important it really is to get people out doing these kinds of activities. For some people, they might just seem like something fun to do on a weekend. But for these guys, it's huge.
This sailing program is run in collaboration with the Bedford VA. There are other adaptive sailing programs run by Piers Park Sailing.
Joined now by 4 veterans, and we appreciate your service to our country, gentlemen. I guess my question to each of you would be, what worked for you to get you to this moment where you could be with me tonight?
When I came back, I drank a lot. Honestly, one of my family members, my mother and my brother, both grabbed me and was like, look, you got to knock this stuff off. Because you're going to force yourself into an early grave. Like, I had to accept the fact that I was not home. I call it the war after the war, and it's always plagued the way that I was, and it just took me baby steps.
Overseas, you're going on missions, you go on ops, you get a lot of adrenaline going. I come home and I knew there's a looming deployment in the future. I just lived for that adrenaline. Really beat my family, and I grew up with a strong family. I grew up with 4 brothers. My wife, my kids, they loved me so much that they accepted me for who I was. And then by surrounding myself like-minded people, veterans that you can be around, and maybe they, internally I would keep things in, but something sneaks out every once in a while where we would talk, and that just helped.
I never would have made it to this point. I never would have transitioned back to who I am now, the man I was before the war, if it wasn't for my wife.
Family can help. Friends can help, even if they didn't serve.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I think, and a lot of the times, like I say, service members, we're just used to enduring misery. I think is one of the terms I've heard. We just know how to deal with misery. But the family members, they're often the ones that recognize the change, and like you're not the same person you used to be. And sometimes that's actually one of the biggest. That's probably one of the biggest identifier. Yeah, for sure. And at Home Base Program, we treat the entire family. We don't just treat the veterans. So we get a lot of moms or girlfriends or spouses, husbands, saying, oh, my partner, they just won't get help. We can help them, but they have to come to us.
Let's talk about suicide, because it is something that we're unfortunately seeing a lot of among the veterans community. And you and I got together to spotlight that. Have we seen any improvement? That was a couple of years ago.
It's sometimes like I feel like we're losing the fight because there isn't enough that we're doing, but it's everyone sitting at this table can tell you everyone's trying as hard as they can. It's just you can't win all the battles. But what I know is I got a guy at the end of the phone. If I'm having a bad night, I can say, hey man, can you meet me for a cup of coffee or a pint or whatever? Yeah, it's there. If you want it, like you said, it's communication. And I think that's key. You meet like-minded people and you talk to other heroes like we're sitting here with, and the programs are there if you want it. But now I think we're being able to allow ourselves to talk about it. And I think that's another thing coming home, you don't talk about it, and then you get the survivor's guilt, you get the depression, you get all this stuff building in, and then you don't want to fight anymore. You wake up and you're like, I can't do it anymore. So now it's all communication, and it's all there, you know?
I know I speak on behalf of everyone watching Veterans Day weekend. We appreciate your service. I want you to know that. Thank you for serving.
Thank you. We sure do. An Army veteran paralyzed physically and emotionally says the ski program helped her find a new confidence. A ski program for disabled veterans is changing lives.
An Army veteran told me it helped her rediscover her inner strength after a tragic fall left her paralyzed.
Don't tell me I can't, because I'll show you I can.
That's Tina LaValle in a nutshell. Oh, and that's Tina LaValle falling.
What happened there?
Her spirit on the mountain is infectious.
1, 2, 3. Up.
Did I break you too?
Even after every fall.
Ready, set.
She gets right back up with a smile.
I don't think anybody could have asked for a more fun, more gung-ho, incredible experience and being with her for 3 days.
It wasn't very long ago her outlook on life was very different.
I felt pretty useless. I felt like I was a burden.
An Army veteran and former athlete, Tina's paralysis wasn't the result of a combat injury. It was a fall at home. A severe head injury left her with loss of memory and seizures so intense they left her in a wheelchair.
I didn't like to ask people for rides to take me places.
It was her daughter-in-law that convinced her it was time to try something new, to trade in her wheelchair for some skis at a winter sports clinic run by the Boston VA.
We're here to tell them you can do this. You can do this. So you don't need to sit at home. You don't need to hide away. You can get out and you can go enjoy life again.
Jason Gray has been running the clinic for disabled veterans the last 2 years. When it started 21 years ago, they only had 8 veterans. This year, they have 53. He says this clinic helps veterans face fears while challenging themselves in a supportive environment. They come up here to Mount Sunapee in Newbury, New Hampshire for a week to meet with other veterans who face similar challenges.
Getting someone out here for the first time and seeing that really the transformation from Monday to Thursday is the most incredible thing you'll see.
Here's your basic ski.
George Rupel with the New England Healing Sports Association helps equip the veterans. There's equipment for all types of disabilities.
Keep those feet wide for me, okay?
This veteran is visually impaired and is being guided down the mountain by volunteers. There are over 130 volunteers that help put on this clinic, which includes doctors and nurses like Sedalia Tavares, a nurse at the Brockton VA, who cheers the vets on with her pom-poms.
Just so rewarding. I can't put it into words, you know, the joy that I get of doing this.
It's that newfound joy that Tina is willing to share.
I think what I'm more proud of is when another veteran will tell me that I'm inspiring to them. That makes me more proud.
The last run of the week ends with a medal ceremony and a lot of hugs from the volunteers. For first-timers like LaValle was just a few years ago, this is only the beginning.
You find something in yourself that you thought you lost, and it makes a world of difference.
Since joining the program a few years ago, Tina tells me she has trouble staying in the house now. She's now involved in sled hockey, road races, and she's even tried rock climbing.
What an incredible story. Love that program.
Inspiration.
It really is. We want to thank all of you for joining us for this Boston 25 News in-depth report coming home. We'd also like to say Happy Veterans Day and thanks to all the service members who keep our country safe and protect our way of life.
Hear, hear. For more information on any of the programs we featured tonight, or if you'd like to watch any of these stories again, you'll find them on our website, boston25news.com/coming home.